Yeah, this is a story of famous dog. But the dog that chases its tail will be busy. These are clapping dogs, rhythmic dogs, harmonic dogs, house dogs, street dogs, dogs of the world unite, dancing dogs.
Hey guys, Eric Corner here and Mark Fair here. What we decided to do, at least I decided to do, is most recently try to figure out what's a better way to reach everybody and get out the message that we've been, or at least I've been preaching off of my soapbox for the last several months. And one of the things that I decided to do was let everybody get what I'm going to call a peek inside the office as we discuss some of the things that we do within the business, within our company. As we discussed 2012, what is our strategy is going to be as far as marketing, getting the message out, and the like. One of the subjects that came up the other day was, I asked Mark, I said, what differentiates, and I know what it is, but I wanted to hear it out of his mouth, what differentiates MTMS training from any other training? There are a slew of schools out there that offer all these golden egg packages and, these ideas that, that kind of draw people into them. But at the end of the day, they're not getting exactly what it is that they're supposed to be getting or what they intend to get. So, Mark, why don't you tell everybody what differentiates MTMS from any other training?
The big picture differentiator, I would say, is going to be. Sorry about the video.
You just cut yourself off.
The first differentiator is going to be our focus on mindset. When I say that it's a 5-day executive protection course, it is a 5-day executive protection course. It's not a 5-day executive protection course with, 40, 50% of physical fitness training or running and gunning or spinning cars. We are going to discuss and practice core subjects that are critical to anybody that's populating that front right seat on a high level. And, and people that I've spoken to, be it neophytes, intermediate level or advanced level practitioners, either proprietary team members or lone wolves out there, that's one consistent theme that I hear is nobody is really teaching or even has the ability to teach mindset. And what is mindset? It's not just a conversation about ethics, and that's what a lot of people seem to think it is. Mindset is being able to understand the variant client psychologies that exist out there, the variety of protective cultures that exist out there, client relationships, the ability to build the subconscious ability to build confidence within yourself as a practitioner. And I explain why that's critical, and I explain techniques as to how you do that without overtly or aggressively doing it. And I think that's what differentiates my course from many of the others. And to put just a fine point on it is we don't focus on immediate action drills. And that's what I fear is a large part of some of these courses training syllabus. Is don't get me wrong, I don't think that I'm not saying that they're not important, but when you're selling core subjects or you're selling executive protection, you need to define what it is you are going to teach, because a neophyte coming into the industry, they need to know how to do the immediate action drills, but they also need to know why they're doing those immediate action drills. And that's what I think is lacking. So we get into the weeds on a lot of things: threat investigation and analysis, protective detail operations, threats to the workplace, real heavy on protective advanced work, real heavy. And as you know, we've even added 2 more practical drills for the student within that week. So it's while there's a lot of lecture, there's an equal, if not a little bit more emphasis on practical application of those skills. So that's what I would say is the differentiator between my EP course and say some others.
And while we're on that subject, one of the other things that we talked about a lot was a lot of the courses nowadays emphasize weapons training, offensive and defensive weapons training within the basic executive protection course. One of the things that I've been talking about, and I know I've talked about it to nauseam, and you and I have discussed about it. Tell everybody what your opinion is in terms of having weapons training within the basic, I'm saying the basic executive protection course.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Let me adjust one thing. I've even gotten away from saying basic anymore, which, as you know, I used to say. I used to package, in my previous position, I would package them that way. But I'm even getting away from that because, again, as you know, we've had some pretty respectable pedigrees that have sat through the EP course and have walked away with, wow, I never looked at it that way, or this is a really good course, yada, 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 yada. So I don't even say basic anymore. But to your point, yeah, the reason I separate the gun work from the core subjects is because I want that focus to be on the core subjects. I don't want it to be on the weapons because, unfortunately, that can tend to take away. Now, if I had 10 days and I could spend, you know, enough time on my core subjects, but then could sprinkle in some gun work, yeah, I might consider doing that. But the reality is a lot of people don't have the time or the money to spend on a 10-day program on a regular basis. So in those 5 days, I try to get you the core subjects. If you want to learn the gun work, I've got a really, I think, cost-effective 2-day package for the gun work, and the focus is gunfighting. And we apply it to a protection theater, whereas the EP course is exactly that. It's an executive protection course with an emphasis on protective advanced work and then the other, small modules within that.
The other thing we were talking about is the differences, at least in the terminology that people are using when they're advertising advanced EP, and they're really not giving advanced EP. Go ahead and talk about that.
Yeah, I don't want to. I try not to. You know how I can get a little anyway, but I try not to get out there too far over my skis on that. But in my opinion, I really take issue with these marketing mavens, as I call them, within the close-in personnel protection industry. They look real good. They got the bald head, the goatee, the sunglasses, a little self-deprecating humor, and all they are, like I said, are marketing mavens. And they throw these pictures up on their website, or they throw these videos up, and it's them pressing a berm with some dipstick targets at the end, barking out commands, and they say that that's advanced EP. That's not advanced EP. That's a day at the range. And while those skills are important, you need to caveat that appropriately, especially to a neophyte coming into the craft, because that person is going to see that. They're naturally going to be intrigued because everybody loves gunfighting. Everybody loves it. But that's not executive protection. That is a tool that is utilized in the delivery of that service, but that is not executive protection. So when you have schools or sometimes I'll say puppy farms that sell it that way, I don't automatically have a particular opinion of that, but that makes me want to, okay, well, let me see what the syllabus is. And then I want to have a conversation and try and understand, well, what's your thinking? Why do you think that is advanced EP instead of, a more involved conversation about surveillance detection and the difference between surveillance detection and counter surveillance, protective driving operations. It's one thing to know how to do a reverse 180. It's another thing to be able to highlight your 5 motorcade protocols and all the various aspects of transportation security. Delving into protective advanced work to the point where you can do a site assessment or a threat assessment on a skyscraper versus a 2 or 3 level building. I mean, those are subjects that I think the executive protection specialist that is operating on that level need to know how to do just as much, if not more, than gunfighting. Gunfighting, again, is an important aspect of what we do, but it is not protection. And I think a school that sells it as a focus of that is kind of doing a disservice to neophytes, and in some cases, in some cases, veterans that are coming into the craft. And I just wish that more schools would define the expectations a little bit better, or define what it is they're actually doing a little bit better, and educate these potential customers as to what they're trying
And in some cases, the school owners and the business owners need to be educated as well as the neophytes, or the guys who are aspiring to do this business. What's happening is, in my perspective, is that they're getting drawn to the glitz and glamour of certain names, and they're finding that brand name is being popular, so it has to be right. And what's happening is they're being led down a path that is hard for them to change that path around and get back on the right path. And you and I have had this conversation before, and I think we agree with it, that I'm not certain if the problem is on the expert level who's delivering the wrong message, or if the guys on the lower level, they're not being able to be educated by the right people. So there is a dichotomy in the industry right now by the ones who are the so-called experts, who are delivering a mixed message and they're drawing people in, and they get them on the wrong path. And then what happens is they run across guys who do it the right way, and all of a sudden the first thing is, where'd you get your training from? So that's another issue. Let me ask you this question. We talk about this all the time. Give me your personal, everybody knows my personal opinion. What's your personal opinion on what's wrong with the craft right now, or the industry?
I'm really trying to be I'm trying to be nice.
Don't be nice. They're peeking in on our conversation.
Yeah. You know my little catchphrase. The unfortunate reality of this business is a lot of people that have no business in it, and there's just some people that are made for certain things, I think, and there's some people that aren't made for certain things. And because of my view of what this product is, and that's what it is, it's a product. And unfortunately, there's some, tactical Timmies out there that think that once they get some EP certificate on their wall, they have some new authority in society. And that scares me a little bit. And the fact of the matter is, on the business side, we are no different than a plumber or an electrician. No different at all, to include the application of use of force. There are some states within the union that specifically regulate protection and support the immediate action in response to a problem, but still there is no added authority that you have. And unfortunately, some people think that that's the case. And that suggests to me either they were taught improperly, or they've got some wiring, some flawed wiring within themselves that go beyond their EP training. Well, I'm not going to get into that. But the bottom line is this, is it's a business. And it's a business that you need to define clearly where you sit within that business. On the surface, most people, we all know the term bodyguard. And that used to make me cringe, because I know what the difference between a bodyguard and an executive protection specialist is. And some people say, well, it's semantics. No, semantics matter, because perceptions in this business matter. A lot of the authority that we have is based on the perception that people have of us. And any authority that we do have, it's not anything that we're sworn to. It's given to us either by the actors within our environment or the principals and clients that we're employed by. So perceptions and semantics matter. And being able to properly define the mission and the platform, I think, is critical to establishing the right mindset, thus the application of your service. If somebody's doing body protection, There's a reason for that. If somebody's doing executive protection, there's a reason for that. Most body protection is done for celebrities, and I guess what I see out there now is celebrity protection. I call it body protection. I used to be very critical of that aspect of the market, but in my previous role, I did some market research, and I realized there is a legitimate market there. There is a client base that wants a reactive, I don't want to say overt, but overt style of protection that is more like a light switch. They turn it on and they turn it off. Whereas executive protection is more like it's more of a proactive approach to protection, which is intelligence-based, and it's more like a dimmer switch. And that requires a higher and more comprehensive skill set than, say, body protection. But it is still a legitimate market space that I think is always going to be there, because there are certain people that buy that product and want that product and don't want the, executive protection product. And as you know, I no longer use executive protection to describe a style. I use it more to describe a level of service, because to be proactive and to bring the skill sets required for, say, a Fortune 5 CEO or, group of C-suite personnel, you have to have a certain tactical as well as administrative and logistics persona that your average, guy with sunglasses and just an earpiece and a 2-day course he found on the internet just doesn't have.
And I would even add in there intellectual prowess too.
Yeah, because the reality is all these immediate action drills that these guys go out and learn how to do, again, like I said, have their place. When you're sitting in that front right seat and you're moving from point A to point B, what are you believe me, you're being observed. How you interact with your environment, how you're able to expand and contract, how you're able to appear and disappear, your adherence to our belief in less is more. All of those things are metrics that these very successful and, you can argue, intelligent individuals are practicing, because if they're able to afford or have a need for your service, they're in a particular position. You can argue how they got there, but they're in a particular position. And trust me, I've been doing this long enough to know they are watching every move, every step, everything you say, and everything you don't say.
They are.
And that goes to mindset. And if all you do is go to an EP course, and all you do is run and gun, and maybe, they might throw a checklist in there for you, there's the door, there's the window, if something bad happens, we run that way. If that's all the training you have, well, you're going to get smelled out. You're going to get sniffed out pretty quickly by this CEO or high net worth individual. And that's the unfortunate reality with some of these puppy farms that are just taking these guys' money,
right,
and letting them smell gunpowder all day, and then they think they've got some good EP training.
Exactly. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to end this one kind of short today, and then we'll do it again. I just want to give them a little teaser so they can come back and get some more. But I think you told them just enough to want to know more from the minister, so to say. I just want to say real quick, Mark was my first mentor. He's the one that gave me my first break in the industry when I was stuck in a static post. Well, it was a bad post, but I was a very, very high-profile client in Virginia. And Mark, and I'm not going to give up too much information on the book. You can read it in the book. Came in to what I've described as the Gilligan's Island detail. Came in and he saw me, and one thing led to another, and he pulled me out of as the guys who worked this detail know what I'm talking about, the gatehouse, and I got my start. So anyway, I just want to give you guys a taste of what it is that we do and talk about behind the scenes. Stay tuned for more of them, because there'll be more to come shortly. All right. This is Eric O'Neill with BPI, Mark Fair with MTMS, and stay tuned.